Welcome. I'm Barbara Gahn-Mueller. I bring you the peacepodcast.org to create a culture of peace on our planet. And every week we have somebody who really and truly represents the peace that we want to see in our corporations, that we want to see in our nonprofits. Today we're going to interview Rachel Pittman. And Rachel Pittman is the executive director of our grassroots advocacy movement. You know what that is? The United Nations Association, UNA-USA. As you know, because I've told you before, I'm president of the Santa Barbara Tri-County chapter. Well, today we're going to talk about the 20,000 Americans in 225 chapters who are dedicated to supporting the work of the United Nations. That just makes me stop in my tracks. That many people caring about our global voice on its 75th anniversary. So I'm going to tell you that she guides us. She does our strategic work. She creates those key partnerships that keeps us going. And her advocacy is unbelievable. But I just want to start saying, welcome, Rachel. I'm so grateful you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you and everyone who's listening.
Thank you. You know, the 75th anniversary of the United Nations is to me a milestone. My late husband, Robert Mueller, spent 40 years at the UN. And when he was there after 5 years, some dignitary said, "What you doing here, young man?" He said, "I'm here to work for peace." And he said to my husband, "Pity you, because you're only going to be here 5 years. The UN won't make it." And Robert said, on the 50th anniversary, "I'll have you know, we're going to make it." And so here we are today on the 75th anniversary. Now, how are the UNA USA chapters, all 225 of them, celebrating this fabulous anniversary?
Well, thank you for asking that really important question. We are definitely keeping busy. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, had a call to people all over the world to conduct conversations about the future that we want. So UNA USA took this charge, and we conducted over 80 consultations throughout the US to capture ideas of opinions of Americans about the current future that the current state that we're in and the future that we want. So through these consultations, we collected over about 2,000 voices from all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia. And during those consultations, we answered three big questions from the Secretary General, which were, are we on track to secure a better world? What kind of future do we want to create? And then what action is needed for us to create a better future? So we conducted these consultations. They'll continue throughout the year, but we just completed a report because we spent the last several months having these conversations with our people in our communities, people who were part of businesses and civics organizations and just everyday individuals like you and me. And through that, we conducted a report called American Voices in the UN. So, they're a little bit pessimistic right now, the majority of those that participated, because we have issues with gender equality, we have issues with lack of education equity, we have climate issues. So they're saying our state's not pretty good, but they believe that, having a more equitable world is achievable through collective action. And Barbara, there are four areas that we looked at, or four areas that kind of floated to the top when we asked them to bring the Sustainable Development Goals into this conversation. And a lot of them thought that if we focus more on quality education, reduced inequalities, climate action, and peace, justice, and strong institutions, that we could have a better future. Of course, they were supportive of all the other SDGs, but these were the four areas that we that floated up to the top during these conversations that we had. And these findings that we had from our consultations have been submitted to the UN and will be a part of their report during the UN General Assembly Week in September. So we're so excited that we have the opportunity to submit our voices about the future we want to the United Nations.
We're listening to Rachel Pittman. Now, you see why I'm so excited about having her as our executive director. She knows what we are working on today. This is not a world that works for all of us. We are not all equal. We do not keep those sustainable development goals in front of us. And now it's time for us to really concentrate and bring the world that we want to create with the United Nations, our global voice. And so now we have one more issue we have to deal with. How is the United Nations? How are we mobilizing to help us through this pandemic? This is a really hard time for so many families, a hard time for people who are experiencing the drama of being sick. It's not an easy time, is it, Rachel?
No, it's not. And, people like us, had to react pretty quickly to regroup. Out of the blue, we were told we had to go home, work from home, stay at home, don't go anywhere. So we really had to think about how would we reach our members so that we can continue our mission to advocate for strong U.S. leadership at the UN, strong U.S. funding at the UN. So we mobilized. And the first thing we did, Barbara, was we decided that, like everyone, we need to use programs like Zoom to bring people together. We were supposed to be at the United Nations on March 27th for our annual Global Engagement Summit at the UN. But we still use platforms like this to bring UN officials and global issues experts to our memberships through our online programs so that they can still have the opportunity to have a better understanding of the work that the UN does, its importance, and also how they're dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. So that's one thing that we did. Another thing is that we are a grassroots movement of Americans that support the work of the UN, which means that we advocate. So we provided resources such as online petitions so people can still reach out to their members of Congress to advocate for US funding, to advocate for support for the World Health Organization, which is under jeopardy right now through the current administration. So that was really important to us. And we also provide other online resources where people can use a platform so they can call their members of Congress and make it really easy for them. We help them communicate about the work of the UN through social media. So we just decided we need to provide more resources. And I will say this, Barbara, the best thing about there's always something good out of something bad, is that we're finding that we're reaching more people outside of UNA USA who want to learn more about the UN and our work, and we're able to do this through online communities that we are growing.
It's absolutely true. I was going to say the same thing. Having my board meetings on the Zoom platform allows us to focus. We're only like right now, I'm looking at you, we're talking about something that's important to both of us, and I'm focusing on you, not on the people around me, because there's nobody around me right now. And there's a blessing. And I think the Secretary General realizes this. Antonio Guterres, what an incredible forward-thinking man. When he said we needed to cease fire, to stop firing at each other, and let's fight the pandemic. I love those words. And so many of our people are working on the pandemic and making sure that we have a ceasefire. But now we have to turn to the recovery. It's an opportunity for us to maybe start new beginnings, not necessarily going back to the old normal, even though it's so familiar, but maybe we have to look at what's right for this future. What's right now? What are we appreciating? They said, oh, we never can get out of our cars. We never can stop gridlock. We're stopping it. And what I appreciate about the pandemic is the calmness that we're experiencing. I'm seeing people much calmer because they're with their families, but I'm also seeing people who aren't sure about the future. What's the Secretary General saying? What's the opportunity here for us right now?
Yeah, he's talking about how we need to take this opportunity to learn what are the issues, meaning that COVID-19 is bringing light. It's elevating issues that we are already dealing with. So you see a lot of issues of inequality of people of color when it comes to healthcare. All of that has come to light. And when it comes to housing, because they can no longer go to work with, some people, or they lost their jobs. There are issues of, where are they going to live if they don't have a job? So much is brought to light because of COVID. It's showing us what our issues are. And the Secretary General is talking a lot about how do we take this knowledge, this better understanding of where we are in the universe, and how do we recover? How do we use these lessons learned and recover? And I think we're starting to think about that at UNA. We are thinking about things, especially in light of racial justice and inequalities that are, that's been going on for years, but more people are becoming more aware of it. We need to think about, what do our board makeups look like? Are we being inclusive with our programmings, which we do, but how can we be better at it? So those are things that, we are thinking about. We are in, by the way, the decade of action. We're in the last 10 years of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And the COVID-19 crisis made us realize that we haven't been doing very well in achieving those goals. So, we need to focus on our more attention to educating people about the Sustainable Development Goals and how they can get involved and advance them.
Well, the decade of action, I love those words, because these were started, the Sustainable Development Goals, and you have the pin on, which I love. A pin, I wear a peace pin all the time because I want people to know that peace is possible. But these Sustainable Development Goals were developed in 2015. We've had 5 years and I don't see the progress that we need. So I think you're onto something. It's zero poverty, no poverty, zero hunger. I mean, these are achievable goals if we put our mind to it.
Absolutely.
So, maybe we need more help. What do you think about asking everybody who's watching today to join their local UNA?
Yes, and they can do that by going to unausa.org to join UNA USA, and they can find where their local chapter is located and start talking to those people in the communities and engage the chapter's wonderful programming around things like the Sustainable Development Goals, and also how to support the work of the UN through all of our advocacy work.
I love that. I love the fact, I've been president of our United Nations Association for almost 8 years, I think, but I love it. And it's very simple to belong, and it's not expensive, but we're working with the United Nations. It expands the reach of the UN. It expands the goals of Antonio Guterres. It expands the goals of the General Assembly. And you can go to unasb.org and go to the United Nations feed and find out what's going on. I think one of the things Zoom has done is kept us informed. And I want to thank you, Rachel, because you have a way of simplifying complex issues and making us aware that we can do something, right?
Absolutely. We definitely can do something. And each of us can collectively bring a better world.
And that's our goal. I look at my wonderful UNA agenda, and I always say, creating a world that works for all, creating a better world, Sustainable Development Goals, celebrating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And I just thank you with all my heart. Do you have a dream for our planet in the next 5-10 years during this decade of action?
Peace and love, of course. That's my goal, just for people to be empathetic and to take care of one another.
That's my goal too. And I am so grateful that you're watching our peacepodcast.org. I'm Barbara Gahn-Mueller. Creating a culture of peace begins with each of us. Peace, happiness, and healthy living. That's all we ask for our children. And that's why our global voice of the United Nations is there for all of us. Bless you. And thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's been an honor. You think about it. What can I do today that will make a difference? Just like we are at the United Nations, each board meeting we end with, what can we do today to help this world achieve the peace that will make us all prosperous and healthy? Thank you for joining us, and please take action.